Travel television episodes highlighted international volunteer organizations. We also took a second look at the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps, one of the earliest efforts at promoting international volunteer activities. As part of the half-century celebration, Service World and Building Bridges Coalition are promoting expanding an international volunteer effort with the hopes that it will continue on for at least another 50 years.
We're with Charles Phillips, the President and CEO of Service for Peace. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure, Amy.
And can you tell us what is unique about your organization?
Well, I think one of the most salient characteristics of our programs is the involvement of college students, especially college students who want to make a difference in the world.
We are walking towards Gilmar, correct me if I'm wrong, it's called Lagado de Susana.
Lagado de Susana.
This is where the community is that we're going to be building the school?
Yeah.
One of our central focus of our mission is to create a culture of service. And we believe that primary to creating a culture of peace within communities, that we need to uplift and raise the ethic of service within communities. Students come not just as individuals, but they become part of a global team. The students are paired together with local students and together with some of the residents within the community, as well as one of the effects of students coming from abroad is to create kind of a sense of excitement in the community.
This weather is awesome. I'm moving here.
Initially, they're sort of wondering, what are they doing there? What is the purpose of this? They come to find out that the university students have paid their own airfare to come over there. They're not getting paid. And it attracts the attention of the community.
How is your organization connected to the Building Bridges Coalition, and why do you think that's important?
The Building Bridges Coalition is an important coalition of organizations that are advocating for international volunteerism. And so we feel it's important to support their efforts and support the goals of the international volunteer sector. Our community programs are ongoing, so even though the students will be there only 2 or 3 weeks, but the work continues because it's community driven.
No solamente pasamos unas 2 semanas en la comunidad y nos vamos dejando las semillas solamente, sino que la misión de Servicio para la Paz es para crear comunidades de paz, y para hacer eso necesitamos muchos voluntarios.
Service World is a coalition of NGOs, colleges, universities, and multinational corporations working together to develop an innovative agenda for expanding international service. In 2011, which is the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Peace Corps and the 10th anniversary of the UN International Year of Volunteers, the movement is seeking 100,000 signatures to a petition supporting international service. One of the co-chairs of Service World is John Bridgeland, who is the vice chairman of Malaria No More, previously served under President Bush as the director of White House Domestic Policy Council, and was the first director of USA Freedom Corps, leading community service after 9/11. Travel Television spoke to Bridge.
So when President Kennedy created the Peace Corps in 1961, he said that it would be truly serious when 100,000 Americans were serving abroad every year, meeting challenges in education and agriculture and the environment and health and more. And so a broad-based coalition of Americans have taken that goal seriously and are working to create 100,000 opportunities for Americans to serve abroad every year, which would be 1 million over a decade. Imagine the impact this could have on the world, on the face of America, and in creating a better and more informed foreign policy for years to come. This effort is called Service World, and it is a broad-based coalition pointing toward the passage of the Sargent Shriver International Service Act, aptly named after that charismatic first director of the Peace Corps. And it will be a combination of a doubling of the Peace Corps to about 15,000 volunteers, expansion of Volunteers for Prosperity, which is mobilizing highly skilled American professionals to work on issues like HIV/AIDS and malaria, to 75,000 Americans for shorter term assignments than the Peace Corps, and then Global Service Fellows, which will be 10,000 volunteers who serve up to 1 year in countries around the world, tapped by their senators and members of Congress to carry out their service missions.
100,000 Americans engaged all over the world with their counterparts, eye to eye, heart to heart, community to community, would radically transform the way in which we trust the world and trust ourselves.
The world needs that kind of large international service venture even more than it did in 1960.
You know, we're approaching the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Peace Corps, and for 50 years Americans have gone to volunteer abroad.
We think this is a historic moment to advance this important legacy and tradition of the United States.
Service World is an effort by many organizations to take a quantum leap forward in international service. And we feel that international service is an effective way to address critical social issues
in a way that welcomes all nationalities into integrated efforts to fight malaria, to fight diarrheal disease, to fight the absence of education for women and girls, to fight the exclusion of people with disabilities, together.
We envision it unfolding this way. One, we want to fulfill the promise of the Peace Corps and follow through on both President George W. Bush and President Obama's commitment to double the Peace Corps.
Second, the Global Service Fellowships, which are for shorter term service, that will enable even more people to be able to go on a direct relationship with nonprofit organizations.
Also, Service World proposes to expand Volunteers for Prosperity from 34,000 volunteers abroad now to 75,000 volunteers abroad for flexible, short-term volunteering so that professionals can use the skills that they have in confronting challenges abroad.
And lastly, just as there is now a fund for social innovation for domestic service, an international social innovation fund.
You know, with the economic challenges in the country, there's tens of thousands of people that would love to spend a year volunteering abroad.
That's who we are. That's how we rebuild when times are tough. We can't look to people in need and say, not now. That's not us.
If we wait 5, 10 more years to try to build this network and develop the capacity of people around the world to address these issues, we will be too late. I mean, we may be pretty close as it is now.
We've been entangled in institutions of war, you might say. It's time to give our heart and our brains and our hands to the institutions of peace.
Exactly 50 years ago, history was made on these steps, and a truly remarkable story began. On a night much like this one, cool and rainy, presidential candidate Senator John F. Kennedy, standing before thousands of students, spoke about sacrifice and service. He challenged U of M students to use their education for a greater purpose. He asked them to serve this country by serving others in developing nations.
No speech had been planned. His staff went to bed. He saw this amazing crowd and said, of course, I have to say something.
I want to express my thanks to you as a graduate of the Michigan of the East, Harvard University.
If you hear the words he said, when you hear those words, you realize that it was a spirit.
How many of you who are going to be doctors are willing to spend your days in Ghana, technicians or engineers? How many of you are willing to work in the foreign service and spend your lives traveling around the world? On your willingness to do that, not merely to serve 1 year or 2 years in the service, but on your willingness to contribute part of your life to this country, I think will depend the answer, whether a free society can compete. I think it can, and I think Americans are willing to contribute, but the effort must be far greater than we've ever made in the past.
You really have to know the times, and you have to know the context of Kennedy having been inaugurated in January, and this whole sense of new beginnings in the nation.
My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
There was excitement everywhere, and I think we felt a little bit like we were part of this new frontier.
But the magic of what happened that night was that those students, they caught not just the spirit, but the fact that those words could be turned into action.
Unless you comprehend the nature of what is being asked of you, this country can't possibly move through the next 10 years in a period of relative strength.
Kennedy sort of was intrigued with the fact that the students responded to him. And in fact, he even said after he left to go on his whistle-stop tour in the state of Michigan, he said, we got a winning idea.
The Peace Corps really was born because the sparks cast by John Kennedy that night, they caught and turned into a flame, and he used the flame to pick up the torch.
Here we were, just a few students at the University of Michigan who responded to a moment in history. And in less than 3 weeks, the future President of the United States is committing himself.
The spirit that was alive here 50 years ago, it seems to be alive again.
You know, it was 50 years ago that a young candidate for president came here to Michigan and delivered a speech that inspired one of the most successful service projects in American history.
And so, it is only fitting in this story so full of coincidence and synchronicity that another young president who also inspired the youth in America with his campaign to once again pass the torch to a new generation and reissue a challenge.
On your willingness to contribute
part of your life to this country, I think, will depend the answer
whether a free society can compete. If you are willing, as past generations were willing, to contribute part of your life to the life of this country, then I, like President Kennedy, believe we can, because I believe in you. Congratulations on your graduation 2010. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Scott Beals started Atlas Service Corps in 2006 with the theme, Change Your Perspective, Change the World. Atlas selects individuals from around the world and pays for them to come to the U.S. for 1 year to serve as fellows and to become part of a team looking for solutions to global issues such as poverty, health, gender equity, and the environment. Facilitating international cooperation and developing global citizens is the focus of Atlas Corps. Travel Television sat down to talk to Scott. So how did you come up with this idea?
Sure. I used to work for the U.S. State Department, and before that I worked with a nonprofit called Ashoka. So I've lived around the world and met inspiring nonprofit leaders. Was reading Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat, and it occurred to me the world's flat in the private sector, it's flat in the academic sector, it's even flat in the athletic sector. Atlas Corps is a unique international nonprofit volunteer organization. What we do is we bring nonprofit leaders from around the world to volunteer in the United States, and we send a few Americans to volunteer abroad. Sometimes people call us a reverse Peace Corps because instead of sending Americans abroad, our primary program brings people here. What we do is we bring skilled professionals currently from 18 different countries to volunteer at nonprofits in DC and New York to learn skills, share their perspectives, and then create a global network of rising nonprofit leaders working together to address critical social issues. We also need people from around the world coming here. We also can learn from people overseas. Someone from Bangladesh who's an expert on floods could teach us a thing or two about the response to Katrina. They come and volunteer at similar organizations in the United States, and they share from their knowledge and skills and experience, but also learn from the U.S. organizations what they do right. and then also learn from each other. It's not a student program or an intern program. We're bringing people in their late 20s, early 30s. We have about a 1% acceptance rate. So they're exceptionally talented and skilled individuals. So people come, and whether they want to volunteer or get involved or become a fellow. And it's generally individuals, maybe learn about the program through State Department or through Ashoka or through Facebook. And they say to themselves, I have 5 years of experience. I have my graduate degree. I'm fluent in English. I'm an inspiring nonprofit leader. And then they apply, and it's a very long competitive process. Twice a year we take applications in the fall and the spring, and then twice a year we place fellows in the fall and the spring.
How long is that process from when they apply to when they get accepted, if they do?
About 6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have affiliations with just one nonprofit or multiple organizations, or how does that work?
We've worked with about 25 different nonprofits, and big organizations like the Grameen Foundation or Ashoka or TechnoServe, and smaller community-based organizations like Centronia or Mobilize.org. Any number of nonprofits could partner with us.
What kind of arrangements are provided by you, and what kind of arrangements do they need to provide in terms of coming into the U.S., and how long do they stay in the U.S.?
Right. They typically stay for about a year, or they could extend up to 18 months. One of the reasons why a program like Atlas Corps hasn't really existed is because the visa and the financing is moderately complicated. But having worked at State Department and consider myself a social entrepreneur, I had ideas about how to overcome that. We sponsor people on a special visa to come here. It's a training visa.
How about housing for somebody like that?
So it's fully funded. So we pay for their flight, their plane ticket, their visa. They get a living stipend, a lot like AmeriCorps Vista or the Peace Corps for that matter. So they don't really make any money on this experience, but they're living in a group house. They're cooking dinners as family dinners at home, and they go back home having not lost any money, but having gained a great experience.
Right.
We feel the Building Bridges Coalition and the larger Service World effort is a great group that we're proud to be a part of. And what Atlas Corps does is that we believe that we're bringing an important element to the coalition of partnership with countries overseas. One of the principles of the BBC and of Service World is that it should be partnership, not paternalism. So some countries, sometimes people perceive when volunteers just go overseas and don't ask for the issues or concerns of the local constituency, it's seen as a paternalistic view of international service. Not that every American sending program is that way, but sometimes it's perceived to be that way. But at Atlas Corps, we're very much about partnerships, whether it's bringing Africans to volunteer here and partner with organizations to learn from as well as contribute their knowledge. It's about saying that, skills and talent and inspiration is evenly distributed among the world, but opportunity is not. And so we're kind of bringing that principle to the coalition and helping, I believe, round out the fact that international volunteerism could probably be a little bit more international than it currently is right now.
Right.
The challenges that we face are so great that we need to find a collaborative solution that's dealt in partnerships to really be able to tackle them in a meaningful way. And that's what Atlas Corps does, that's what the BBC does, and that's what Service World is all about.
Scott, thanks for being here.
Thank
Very
you.
nice to meet
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
March 1st is the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps. Travel Television spoke with Peace Corps Director Aaron Williams about the anniversary, and then with John Bridgeland for his thoughts about the next 50 years.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis. I'm also sending to Congress a message proposing authorization of a permanent Peace Corps. This Corps will be a pool of trained men and women sent overseas by the United States government or through private institutions and organizations to help foreign countries meet their urgent needs for skilled manpower. It is our hope to have between 500 to 1,000 people in the field by the end of this year. We will send Americans abroad who are qualified to do a job. We will send those abroad who are committed to the concept which motivates the Peace Corps. It will not be easy. None of the men and women will be paid a salary. They will live at the same level as the citizens of the country which they're sent to, doing the same work, eating the same food, speaking the same language. We're going to put particular emphasis on those men and women who have skills in teaching, agriculture, and in health. I'm hopeful that it will be a source of satisfaction to Americans and a contribution to world peace.
Kennedy hadn't planned on a Peace Corps when students picked up on remarks he made during a campaign stop.
How many of you who are going to be doctors are willing to spend your days in Ghana? How many of you are willing
His words lit the imagination of Michigan students. And to his surprise, he was presented with a petition signed by 800 students ready to volunteer. Overnight, a handful of students elicited a campaign pledge
I propose a Peace Corps.
and inspired a new strategy in the Cold War.
After centuries of colonial rule, the Cameroon celebrates its achievement of sovereignty.
As new nations freed themselves from colonial rule, the United States and the Soviet Union competed for their loyalty. Kennedy thought the Peace Corps could help in a global fight against hunger and disease and enhance America's standing among developing nations.
In a larger sense, the United States and the Soviet Union want to be aligned with these smaller countries in these other areas of the world. So it's partly about winning hearts and minds in the Cold War, but it really was also about unleashing this sort of youthful idealism and believing that American know-how could actually solve these problems.
I think the Peace Corps is a wonderful opportunity for Americans to have a chance to engage globally. For young Americans, it gives them a chance to really be tested and to find out how you can make a difference at the grassroots level. I don't think there's anything more important than that. For more mature Americans who are at the end of their careers or are retired and who want to give back, the Peace Corps offers a wonderful opportunity to do that, because we can always use experienced Americans who have the technical savvy to go into another country and provide their expertise. And as a matter of fact, when I was in Ghana last week, I met an 80-year-old woman. I helped celebrate her birthday, and she is working on ecotourism in the cocoa industry in Ghana.
Sergeant Shriver, who was the first director of the Peace Corps, when he brought forth the actual plan for the Peace Corps, wanted it to be big and bold. The original vision for the Peace Corps was to have 100,000 Americans serving abroad every year. Today there are about 8,600. At the height of Shriver's, at the end of Shriver's term as director, there were about 15,000. So our vision is for an expanded Peace Corps, together with other programs like Volunteers for Prosperity and Global Service Fellows, to meet that ambitious goal of 100,000 Americans serving abroad, just like they do for 2 years today through the Peace Corps.
The future of the Peace Corps really rests with you. If you do well, then the Peace Corps will be developed, and more Americans will go abroad. And we'll find a greater and greater response to this idea of serving our country. Thank you.
Benefits for me are immeasurable. One can't put a value on that other than it was a life-influencing event to spend 3 years there, and knowing that I walked away with more than probably what I gave.
It helped show me you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. And it gave me an adaptability. I rarely sense that you can't do it. Now, you probably can't do it the way you planned on it, but you can get it done. And I think Peace Corps helped with that, because there were times when there wasn't much to work with, but you can figure out some way how to get it done.
A big one for me was the growth that I got from the experience. I mean, the sense of international awareness of the whole universe was not just New York or Florida or California or the United States. I mean, that there really was an entire world, other cultures. I mean, I knew all these things from the book, but having lived them and experienced and been immersed into another culture and living there, that is definitely right at the very top. For me, the outlook it gave me, the different perspective.
When I was saying goodbye and leaving, saying goodbye to the drivers and workers and the assistants, one of the guys said to me, he says, "You're umtumzor, you're a good man." And that's the most I could ever ask for out of the Peace Corps experience. You know, I could build bridges, I could build roads and stuff like that. But to make an impression like that, I'm very proud of.
that looking back from this stage in my life, I'm 65 now, that was a treasured time, and I don't think we realized how treasured it was until we look back and realize the time that we had on our hands to just to be.
To me, it's just such an incredible time. In fact, I mean, now I'm 60-something, skip that part, but I look back and I actually almost blow off my childhood. I almost take life starts with the Peace Corps. I mean, the stuff before that, it was there and it's just the usual stuff. But it really, there's no meaning. There's no real specifics one thinks about. And the Peace Corps was just such an incredible experience that's where I really start keeping track of life.
In the long term, no doubt about it, the most dynamic and the most mind-broadening and enjoyable experience I ever had in my life was the Peace Corps. There have been other things that have been enjoyable, other things that have given me a great deal of pleasure. There's no doubt that dynamically, as far as growth is concerned, that was without a doubt the best part of my life.
There's a sense of camaraderie and closeness that basically has left for 35 or 40 years that I didn't realize was with that group. And I didn't realize it would be quite this emotional. Yeah. It had a pretty big impact on my